The shift begins here. Most people speak to be heard. Leaders speak to be remembered. There's a difference, a vast one. You've felt it before that moment when someone walks into a room and says nothing, yet everyone turns. That moment when a single sentence changes everything, when words land like truth itself. That's not luck. That's not charisma. That's mastery, and you're about to claim it. Right now, in this very moment, you're making a choice. You're choosing to stop being someone who just speaks and start becoming someone who commands presence, someone who moves people, someone whose words create gravity. This is not about being louder. It's about being clearer, not about talking more, but meaning more. The world is full of noise, full of voices competing for attention, shouting, pleading, performing. But here's what most people don't understand. Volume is not power. Repetition is not influence. Performance is not leadership. Real leadership speaks once and changes everything. Think about the people you truly respect, the ones whose words you remember years later. They didn't shout at you. They didn't overwhelm you with information. They spoke with quiet certainty, with intention, with weight. And when they finished speaking, their words stayed. That's what you're building here, not a skill, an identity. You're not learning to speak better. You're becoming the kind of person whose words must be heard, whose presence commands respect, whose voice carries truth. This journey will strip away everything weak, everything uncertain. Everything is borrowed from others, and it will reveal what's been waiting beneath, your authentic voice, the one that doesn't need permission, doesn't need approval, doesn't need volume, the voice that simply is. In the next 2 hours, you'll transform, not through theory, not through tricks, but through truth, through principles that have guided leaders for centuries, through patterns that separate those who talk from those who lead. You'll learn the mirror principle, how your outer voice reflects your inner clarity. You'll master the power of silence, the strongest sound a leader can make. You'll discover how tone conquers vocabulary, how stillness beats volume, how precision creates impact. But most importantly, you'll remember who you really are, not someone who needs to prove themselves, someone who already knows. The shift begins here. Not tomorrow. Not when you're ready. Now. Because the world doesn't wait for perfect speakers. It follows clear ones. It follows people who know what they mean and mean what they say. Your voice is not just sound. It's energy. It's truth. It's leadership itself. And by the end of this journey, when you speak, people will listen. Not because you demanded it, not because you earned it through force, but because you became it. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The voice within. Your outer voice reflects your inner clarity. Always. Every word you speak carries the weight of what you believe about yourself. Every tone reveals what you feel about your right to be heard. Every pause shows whether you trust your own message. If people can't feel your words, they'll never follow your voice. Let that sink in. Not hear. Feel. Because anyone can hear sounds. Dogs hear sounds. Machines process sounds. But humans feel truth. They sense conviction. They detect authenticity from 1,000 subtle signals you're broadcasting, whether you know it or not. And right now, most people are broadcasting confusion. They speak with question marks embedded in their statements. They apologize before they begin. They hedge every claim with maybe and I think and if that makes sense. This is not communication. This is hesitation disguised as speech. And leadership never hesitates. Listen carefully. Your voice is not separate from you. It's not a tool you pick up and put down. It's not something you perform or fake or practice in the mirror until it sounds right. Your voice is you. It's the audible manifestation of your internal state. When you lack self-trust, your voice wavers. When you doubt your message, your words scatter. When you disconnect from your truth, your tone goes flat. This is what I call the mirror principle. Every external expression mirrors an internal reality. Think about a moment when you spoke with absolute certainty. Maybe you were defending someone you love. Maybe you were stating a boundary that mattered. Maybe you were sharing something you'd discovered that changed your life. How did your voice sound in that moment? Steady, clear, unwavering. Not because you practiced those words, but because you believed them. That's the secret most speaking coaches won't tell you. Technique without belief is just noise. You can learn every vocal exercise, every power pose, every persuasion tactic, and still sound hollow. Because people don't follow your words. They follow your certainty. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. If your voice lacks power, it's because your internal foundation is shaking. You're speaking from insecurity, from fear of judgment, from a place that's seeking permission rather than claiming authority. And no speech technique can fix that. Only truth can. So before you speak to others, you must first speak honestly to yourself. You must ask the hard questions. Do I believe what I'm about to say? Do I have the right to say it? Am I speaking from strength or seeking approval? These questions matter because every lie you tell yourself gets amplified when you open your mouth. Every doubt you ignore becomes Bosan's vocal tremor. Every value you compromise becomes a break in your tone. Your voice is not sound. It's energy. It's truth. Let me tell you what happens when you align your inner voice with your outer one. Magic. Not the kind you see in movies. The kind you feel in rooms. The kind that makes people lean forward. The kind that ends arguments without raising volume. The kind that settles chaos with a single sentence. I've watched this transformation happen countless times. Someone who used to ramble suddenly speaks in clear, complete thoughts. Someone who used to apologize for existing suddenly states their needs without flinching. Someone who used to hide behind jokes suddenly delivers wisdom with quiet gravity. What changed? Not their vocal cords, their internal alignment. They stopped performing and started being. They stopped seeking and started knowing. They stopped asking permission and started claiming presence. This is your work now. Not to sound like someone else, but to sound like the truest version of yourself. The version that knows. The version that doesn't need external validation, because internal conviction is enough. The version that speaks not to impress, but to express. Here's your first practice. For the next 24 hours, Speak only when you mean it. Say only what you believe. Express only what's true. This will be harder than you think. You'll notice how much of your speech is filler. How many words are aimed at pleasing? How often you say things you don't mean just to fill silence or avoid discomfort. Cut all of it. Speak less. Mean more. Watch what happens to your voice when you do this. It will deepen, slow down, carry more weight. Not because you're trying, because you're aligning. Your outer voice is beginning to match your inner truth. And when that happens, when your words come from the same place, your convictions live, when your tone carries the certainty of your beliefs, when your presence reflects your internal clarity, people listen. Not because you commanded it, because you embodied it. Remember, you don't act like a leader. You become one. And before you speak to others, you must first speak honestly to yourself. This is where leadership begins, in the quiet conversation between you and truth, in the mirror that shows you who you really are, in the voice that stops asking permission and starts claiming presence. Your journey has begun, not with technique, with truth. And truth, spoken clearly, is the most powerful sound in the world. Your voice is not sound, it's energy. It's truth. Now make it yours. Chapter 2. Silence is the strongest sound. Most people fear silence. Leaders use it. There's a reason for this fear. Silence feels like emptiness, like lost opportunity, like someone else might fill the space before you do. So people talk. They fill every gap, rush through every pause, panic when conversation stops, and in doing so, they surrender all power. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is gravity. Think about the last time someone truly captured your attention. Not with volume, not with endless words, but with the strategic use of nothing. They said something profound, then stopped. And in that stop, the weight multiplied. The message deepened. The truth settled. That's what silence does. It gives your words room to land, room to breathe, room to become more than just sounds passing through air. Silence commands attention. Silence gives weight. Silence makes words sacred. But here's what most people miss. Silence is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of power. It's the moment where you demonstrate complete confidence in what you just said. You don't need to repeat it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to fill the space with nervous energy. You said it. It's true. Now let it work. That pause, that deliberate, unafraid pause, tells everyone in the room, I trust my message. I trust you to understand it. I trust that truth needs no decoration. And that trust, that unwavering trust in your own words, is magnetic. Consider the leaders you admire most. They speak slowly. They pause often. They let silence do half the work. When they finish a sentence, they don't immediately launch into the next one. They stop. They breathe. They give you time to absorb what was just said. And in that absorption, the message becomes yours. Not something told to you, something you discovered. That's the power of strategic silence. It transforms monologue into dialogue, not because anyone else speaks, but because the listener's mind engages, processes, integrates. And when people integrate your message themselves, They own it forever. But achieving this requires something most people lack: comfort with discomfort. Because silence feels uncomfortable at first. Your instinct will be to fill it. Your nervousness will scream, "Say something, anything. Don't let them think you're done, or uncertain, or..." Stop. That's the old you talking. The you that needed constant validation. The you that measured worth in words per minute. The you that thought leadership was performance. The new you, the one you are becoming, knows better. You know that pauses create anticipation, that silence amplifies importance, that space between words is where meaning lives. Let me share what happens in the mind of your listener during silence. First, attention spikes. The unexpected pause breaks their prediction pattern. They lean in mentally. What comes next? Second, processing deepens. Without new information bombarding them, they actually absorb what you just said. The message moves from surface hearing to deep understanding. Third, respect builds. Because only confident speakers pause. Only people who trust their message allow silence. And everyone senses this. Your pause says, "I don't need to convince you. I don't need to overwhelm you. I said something true. Now I'm giving you space to recognize it." That's leadership. Now here's how you practice this. Start with 3-second pauses. When you finish an important sentence, count. 1, 2, 3. Then continue. It will feel eternal. It will feel like you've lost them. You haven't. You've captured them. Those 3 seconds are where your message transforms from information to insight. From something they heard to something they felt. And over time, you'll learn to read the room during silence. You'll sense when to extend it for emphasis. You'll sense when to break it for momentum. You'll sense when to sit in it and let the weight multiply. This is not a trick. This is mastery. The great speakers throughout history understood this. Lincoln spoke slowly, with long pauses between sentences. People remembered every word. Churchill let silence hang after his most powerful declarations. The pause made them unforgettable. King paused before "I have a dream." The silence created sacred space for what followed. These weren't accidents. These were choices. Deliberate, confident, powerful choices. And you can make them too. But first, you must overcome the fear. The fear that silence means weakness, that pauses mean uncertainty, that empty space means lost influence. All lies. Silence is strength. Pauses are precision. Empty space is where power concentrates. Here's what I want you to understand on a deeper level. When you rush through your words, you treat them as disposable. Like they're not important enough to deserve space. Like you don't believe they'll land unless you immediately pile more on top. That desperation is audible, and it repels influence. But when you pause after speaking truth, when you let your message breathe, when you demonstrate complete confidence in the weight of your words, everything changes. Your words become events. Not noise. Events. Moments people remember. Lines that echo in their minds long after you've gone. Because you gave those words the gift of silence. And silence, my friend, is the strongest sound a leader can make. So practice this now. Speak a truth. Then stop. Count to 3. Feel the discomfort. Don't fill it. Let the silence work. Watch how the air changes, how attention sharpens, how your next words carry more weight simply because you proved you don't need to speak constantly to command the room. Silence commands attention. Silence gives weight. Silence makes words sacred. Most people will never learn this. They'll fill every space with noise. They'll chase attention through volume. They'll mistake quantity for quality. Let them. You're different now. You understand that the space between words is where leadership lives, that the pause before truth is sacred ground, that silence is not the absence of power, it's the presence of it. Speak less, mean more, pause often, and watch the world lean in, not because you demanded attention, because you mastered the strongest sound of all. Silence. Chapter 3. The Language of Respect. Tone conquers vocabulary every time. You can use perfect words arranged in flawless grammar, delivered with doctoral precision, and still communicate nothing but insecurity. Because people don't remember what you said. They remember how it felt to hear you say it. The language of respect has nothing to do with formality, nothing to do with big words or impressive references or careful articulation. It has everything to do with intention, with presence, with the energy beneath your words. Let me show you what I mean. Two people say the exact same sentence. I think we should consider this option. One sounds weak, uncertain, easily dismissed. The other sounds clear, grounded, worth considering. Same words, different worlds. Why? Tone. The first person's tone carried hesitation. Their voice rose at the end like a question. Their energy asked for permission. Their presence said, "Please validate me." The second person's tone carried certainty. Their voice stayed level and grounded. Their energy claimed space. Their presence said, "This matters." No additional words needed. No vocabulary upgrade required. Just intention aligned with sound. This is the language of respect. And it starts with eliminating everything that undermines it. First, qualifiers. Words like just, maybe, kind of, sort of. These are not humility. These are self-sabotage. Listen to the difference. I just wanted to share an idea versus I want to share an idea. One word removed. Entire energy changed. The first version apologizes for existing. The second claims space confidently. You earn the room not by asking for it, but by inhabiting it. Second, upspeak. That rising inflection at the end of statements that transforms them into questions. So I think we should move forward with the project and get started. Every sentence sounds uncertain. Every statement becomes a plea for validation. Your voice should descend at the end of declarations, not rise. Statements are statements, not questions seeking permission. Third, filler sounds. Like, you know. These aren't thoughtful pauses. These are nervous leaks. Your insecurity made audible. When you need a moment to think, take silence. Not filler. Silence is powerful. Filler is weak. Now here's what replaces all of this. Intention. Before you speak, know why you're speaking. Know what you want to communicate. Know what feeling you want to create. Then speak from that place. Not from nervousness, not from a script, from intention. When you speak with intention, your tone naturally carries authority. Not because you're forcing it, but because you mean it. And meaning creates resonance. Resonance creates respect. Let me tell you what respect actually sounds like. It sounds calm, even under pressure, especially under pressure, because calm is contagious. When you remain steady, everyone around you steadies. When you anchor in certainty, others anchor to you. This doesn't mean monotone. It doesn't mean emotionless. It means rooted. Your energy comes from depth, not height. From ground, not performance. From truth, not tactics. Think about the people who command natural respect. They don't yell. They don't rush. They don't perform dominance through volume or aggression. They simply speak with complete alignment between what they think, what they feel, and what they say. That alignment is audible, and it's irresistible. Here's how you build it. Start by removing shame from your communication. Most insecure speech patterns come from shame, from the belief that you shouldn't take up space, that your thoughts aren't valuable, that you need permission to have a voice. All false. You have the right to speak, not because you earned it, because you exist, and your existence gives you voice. Own that. When you remove shame, you remove qualification. You remove apology. You remove the constant need to soften and hedge and minimize your presence. And what emerges is clean communication. Clear, direct, respectful of yourself and others. Here's the paradox most people miss. Being direct is more respectful than being soft. When you speak clearly, you respect the listener's intelligence. You don't waste their time with verbal gymnastics. You don't make them decode your meaning through layers of qualification. You say what you mean, and you trust them to handle it. That's respect. Real respect. Not the performative kind that's really just fear disguised as politeness, but the genuine kind that says, I value your time, so I'll be clear. I trust your judgment, so I'll be direct. I respect this conversation, so I'll be present. That presence, that full, unashamed, intentional presence, is what people respond to. Not your credentials, not your title, your energy, the feeling they get when you speak. And that feeling comes from tone, from the subtle music beneath your words, from the energy you broadcast even before the first syllable leaves your mouth. So here's your practice. For the next week, notice your tone, not your words, your tone. When do you rise at the end of statements? When do you add unnecessary qualifiers? When do you sound like you're asking permission? Catch yourself. Then adjust. Lower your tone at the end of statements. Remove qualifiers. Speak like you mean it. Not aggressively. Confidently. There's a difference. Aggression seeks to dominate. Confidence simply exists. And existence, full, present, unashamed existence, is the foundation of respected speech. This is how you earn the room without asking for it. Not through force, through presence, not through performance, through authenticity, not through volume, through intention. Calm is contagious. Certainty is magnetic. Presence is power. Remember, tone conquers vocabulary, so master your tone. Align it with your truth. Let it carry the weight of your conviction. and watch how respect follows naturally. Not because you demanded it, because you embodied it. The language of respect is not complex. It's simple. It's honest. It's intentional. And it starts the moment you decide your voice matters. Not someday. Now. Speak with calm. Speak with intention. Speak with the knowledge that your presence alone is enough. And the room will feel it every single time. Chapter 4. Speak like you mean it. Energy of conviction. That's what moves people. Not volume, not vocabulary, not perfect articulation or impressive facts. Conviction. The feeling that you believe what you're saying so deeply that your words carry physical weight. You've felt this before. Someone speaks, and you feel it in your chest, in your gut. Something shifts inside you, not because their words were clever, but because they were true. And the speaker knew it. That's conviction. And it's the difference between speaking and leading. Here's what most people misunderstand. They think power comes from being loud, from projecting, from filling space with sound. Wrong. Loud is not powerful. Stillness is. Real vocal power comes from emotional alignment, not volume. When your emotions match your message, your voice naturally carries weight. It doesn't need amplification. It doesn't need force. It simply resonates at a frequency that bypasses intellectual defenses and lands directly in the listener's core. This is not manipulation. This is truth transmission. And it only works when you actually believe what you're saying. Let me show you the difference. Imagine someone yelling, "This is important." Now imagine someone speaking quietly, with complete stillness. "This is important." Which one do you believe? The quiet one. Every time. Because volume is often compensation. It's what people use when they don't trust their message to land on its own merit. But stillness. Stillness says, "I don't need to shout." Truth doesn't require volume. What I'm saying is so real that it speaks for itself. And everyone feels that. Your voice doesn't echo louder. It lands deeper. So how do you develop this? First, you must connect your words to your values. Speak about things that actually matter to you. Things you've lived. Things you've learned through experience, not theory. When you speak from lived truth, conviction is automatic. You don't have to manufacture it. It's already there. Second, you must eliminate performance. Stop trying to sound like someone else. Stop mimicking the tones and patterns of speakers you admire. They sound powerful because they're being themselves. You'll sound powerful when you're being yourself, not performing yourself. Being yourself. There's a massive difference. Performance is exhausting. It requires constant monitoring, constant adjustment, constant energy to maintain the mask. Being is effortless. It requires only honesty. And honesty is what conviction sounds like. Third, you must align your body with your message. Your voice emerges from your entire being, not just your vocal cords. When your body is tense, your voice tightens. When your chest is collapsed, your voice weakens. When your breath is shallow, your words scatter. But when you stand grounded, when your spine lengthens, when your chest opens, when your breath deepens, your voice finds its natural power. Not forced power, natural power, the kind that comes from physical alignment with truth. Here's an exercise. Stand up right now. Plant your feet firmly. Lengthen your spine. Drop your shoulders. Take a deep breath into your belly. Now speak a truth you know absolutely. I am here. Feel where that voice comes from. Not your throat, your core. That's your real voice. The voice of conviction. The voice that doesn't need to prove itself because it knows itself. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you speak with conviction, you give others permission to feel deeply. You create an emotional environment where truth is welcome, where feeling is safe, where people can drop their defenses because they sense you've already dropped yours. This is leadership, not authority. Leadership. The difference: authority demands compliance. Leadership invites transformation. And transformation requires emotional truth. So when you speak, don't just transmit information. Transmit emotion. Let people feel what you've felt. Let them sense what you've learned. Let them experience, through your voice, the reality you're describing. This doesn't mean being dramatic. It means being genuine. It means caring about your message enough to let it move you. Because if your message doesn't move you, it will never move others. Think about the speeches that changed you. Not informed you, changed you. They weren't perfect. They weren't flawless. They weren't performed. They were felt. The speaker cared so much that their caring became contagious. Their conviction became yours. And that's what you're building. Not the ability to speak well, the ability to move people through genuine conviction. Here's the challenge most people face. They're afraid of being seen caring too much. Afraid of being vulnerable. Afraid of revealing how much something actually matters to them. So they flatten their tone. They add ironic distance. They protect themselves with casualness. And in doing so, they surrender all power. Because power comes from caring, from meaning it, from being willing to show that you're invested in your message. Not desperate, invested. There's a difference. Desperation seeks validation. Investment offers value. When you speak with investment, with genuine care for your message and your listener, everything changes. Your pace slows naturally because you want each word to land. Your tone deepens naturally because you're speaking from conviction, not performance. Your presence intensifies naturally because you're fully there, not halfway hiding. And people feel all of this. They may not be able to articulate it, but they feel it, and they respond to it. Because everyone is starving for genuine communication, for someone who actually means what they're saying, for a voice that isn't trying to impress, but simply expressing truth. Be that voice. Not sometimes, always. Speak like you mean it. Not because someone's watching, because you actually do mean it. Let me give you a speech challenge right now. Say this out loud, with full conviction. My voice matters. My message is real. I speak from truth, not performance. Say it again. Louder this time. Feel it in your chest. Let it resonate in your bones. One more time, with everything you've got. Notice what happens. When you speak with full commitment, your entire energy shifts. Your doubt dissolves. Your presence expands. Not because the words were magic, because the conviction was real. That's what you're building. The ability to access that conviction whenever you speak. Not by faking it, by connecting to it, by remembering that your voice carries truth. And truth, spoken with conviction, is unstoppable. Your voice doesn't echo louder. It lands deeper. In hearts, in minds, in the places where real change happens. So stop trying to sound impressive. Start trying to sound true. Stop performing confidence. Start embodying it. Stop speaking to be heard. Start speaking to be felt. Because that's what conviction does. It bypasses the mind and touches the soul. It ends arguments without debate. It inspires action without manipulation. It leads without demanding. And it all starts with a simple decision: to mean what you say, to say what you mean, to speak with the full weight of your truth. Not loud, deep, not performed, genuine, not borrowed, yours. This is how you speak like you mean it. This is how your voice finds its power. This is how you become unforgettable, not through tricks, through truth. Spoken with conviction, felt with certainty, delivered with the quiet confidence of someone who knows. Their voice doesn't need to be louder. It just needs to be real. Chapter 5. Precision over volume. Clear words. Clean thoughts. Confident presence. This is the trinity of powerful communication. And it all starts with precision. Most people think communication is about saying more, about explaining thoroughly, about covering every angle and addressing every possible misunderstanding. Wrong. Real communication is about saying less with more intent. It's about choosing each word deliberately, about trusting that the right word, placed correctly, does more work than 100 vague ones. This is word economy, the strength of saying less. And it requires something most people lack: clarity of thought. You cannot speak precisely if you're thinking vaguely. You cannot communicate cleanly if your mind is cluttered. You cannot present confidently if you're uncertain about your message. So, precision starts before words leave your mouth. It starts in the space where thoughts form. Let me ask you something. When was the last time your words actually moved someone? Not entertained them, not informed them, moved them, changed how they saw something, shifted their perspective, caused them to take action they wouldn't have taken otherwise. If you can't remember, there's a reason. Your words lack precision. They're general when they should be specific, vague when they should be sharp, scattered when they should be focused. And this happens because most people think while they speak instead of before they speak. They use speech as a thinking tool, which means listeners have to wade through their processing to find the actual message. That's not communication. That's verbal clutter. Here's what changes everything. Think first. Speak second. Know what you want to say before you start saying it. This doesn't mean scripting every word. It means having a clear point, a specific intention, a target for your message. Then use the minimum words necessary to hit that target. Nothing more. When you do this, something magical happens. Your words gain weight. Each one matters. Each one carries purpose. Each one lands with impact. Because you're not filling space. You're delivering truth. Let me show you the difference between vague and precise. Vague. I think we should probably try to do better with this project. Maybe improve our approach or whatever. Precise. We need a new strategy. Same basic message. Completely different power. The vague version hides behind qualification. It protects the speaker from commitment. It leaves escape routes everywhere. The precise version claims a position, states a need, demands nothing, but communicates everything. That's the power of precision. Now here's what most people fear. Being precise makes you accountable. When you say something clearly, people know what you mean. They can agree or disagree. They can hold you to it. That feels risky. So people soften. They hedge. They create plausible deniability through vagueness. And in doing so, they surrender all influence. Because influence requires commitment. And commitment requires precision. You can't inspire people with, maybe we should kind of think about possibly. You inspire them with, this is what we're doing. Clear, clean, confident. Here's how you develop precision. First, reduce your sentence length. Most people speak in paragraphs. Long, winding, multi-clause structures that lose the listener 3 turns back. Speak in sentences. Short ones, each containing one thought. This forces clarity. You can't hide vague thinking in short sentences. You must know what you mean. Second, eliminate filler words. Every really, very, just, basically, literally weakens your message. They're intensifiers that actually reduce intensity. They're emphasis that actually dilutes impact. Remove them. Trust your core words to carry meaning. They will. Third, embrace specific language. Don't say soon. Say Tuesday. Don't say many. Say 47. Don't say improve. Say increase response rate by 20%. Specificity creates reality in the listener's mind. Vagueness creates nothing. Fourth, practice articulation. This isn't about sounding fancy. It's about ensuring each word is heard distinctly. Mumbling is mental laziness made audible. Slurring is disrespect disguised as casualness. Articulate. Enunciate. Let each word live. Not because you're performing, because you care enough to be understood. Now let's talk about rhythm. Precision includes knowing when to pause, when to slow, when to emphasize. Your message has a natural rhythm if you let it breathe. Important word? Slow down. New idea? Pause before it. Key phrase? Repeat it. This isn't formula. It's feel. But it only works when you're connected to your message, when you care about it landing. Which brings us back to the core. Precision is not technique. It's caring. Caring enough to think before you speak. Caring enough to choose words that matter. Caring enough to remove everything that doesn't serve the message. When people speak imprecisely, they're not respecting the listener's time. They're not respecting their own message. They're not respecting the moment. But when you speak with precision, when every word earns its place, when your message is stripped to its essence, you create impact, real impact, the kind that echoes long after you've finished speaking. Think about the quotes you remember, the lines that stuck with you for years. None of them were long. None were complicated. None required a dictionary. I have a dream. Ask not what your country can do for you. Be the change you wish to see. short, precise, unforgettable. That's the power of word economy. Not saying everything, saying the right thing. Here's what I want you to practice. Before you speak, ask yourself, what's the one thing I want them to remember? Not 3 things. 1. Then build your message around that one thing. Cut everything else. Be ruthless. Every sentence should serve that central message. Every word should carry it forward. If it doesn't, remove it. This is hard at first. Your instinct will be to over-explain, to cover every angle, to anticipate every objection. Resist. Trust your listener to follow. Trust your message to land. Trust that less, done right, is always more powerful than more done poorly. Clear words, clean thoughts, confident presence. This is not a formula. It's a philosophy, a way of respecting communication itself. When you speak precisely, you honor the listener's intelligence. You honor your own message. You honor the moment. And that honor creates power. Not forced power, natural power. The kind that makes people lean forward. The kind that makes words stick. The kind that transforms speakers into leaders. So practice this now. Take your most important message, the thing you most want people to understand. Say it in 10 words or less. Can't do it? Then you don't understand it yet. Clarity precedes precision. Understanding precedes communication. If you can't say it simply, you don't know it deeply enough. So think more, until the essence emerges, until the core message becomes crystal clear. Then speak that core. Nothing more. Watch what happens. Your words will land like stones in still water, creating ripples, creating movement, creating change. Not because you said more, because you said exactly what needed to be said, and nothing else. Clear words, clean thoughts, confident presence. This is precision. This is power. This is how you become unforgettable. One precise word at a time. Chapter 6. Command the room without demanding it. Leadership is not volume. It's gravity. You've been in rooms where someone walks in and everything shifts. They don't announce themselves. They don't demand attention. They don't perform authority. They simply arrive. And the room arranges itself around them. That's gravity. That's the invisible force created by someone who knows who they are and doesn't need you to validate it. This is what you're building toward. Not the ability to command attention through force. The ability to attract it through presence. There's a profound difference. Commanding requires effort, requires maintenance, requires constant assertion of dominance. Attracting requires nothing but authenticity. You show up fully. You occupy your space completely. You speak from center. And gravity does the rest. But here's what most people misunderstand. They think this kind of presence is something you're born with, that some people have it and others don't. False. Presence is not genetic. It's developed through inner work, through alignment, through the decision to stop performing and start being. Let me tell you what invisible authority actually is. It's the power that doesn't need announcement, the influence that doesn't require title, the respect that isn't demanded but automatically given. It comes from one source: internal certainty. When you're certain of who you are, you stop seeking external validation. You stop performing for approval. You stop modulating your presence based on who's watching. You just are. And that being, that full, unashamed, authentic being, is magnetic. People don't follow your position. They follow your presence. Think about the difference between talkers and leaders. Talkers fill every space with words. They dominate conversations through volume and frequency. They mistake airtime for influence. Leaders speak rarely. But when they do, everyone listens. Not because they demanded it, because they earned it through the quality of their presence. Here's the secret they understand. You don't command rooms by taking space from others. You command rooms by fully occupying your own space. No apology, no shrinking, no performance. Just complete ownership of who you are. When you do this, something interesting happens. Other people naturally defer to you. Not because you're dominating, but because your centeredness creates a gravitational pull. You become the eye of the storm, the still point around which everything else moves. And that stillness, that unshakable stillness, is what real leadership looks like. Let me show you how to develop this. First, stop seeking approval. Every time you look for validation, you leak power. Every time you adjust your message based on someone's reaction, you diminish your gravity. This doesn't mean ignore feedback. It means root in your own knowing first. Speak from that root. Then let reactions be reactions. Second, embrace your complete presence. Most people only show up partially. They hold back their full energy. They modulate themselves to fit the room. Don't. Bring all of you. Your depth, your stillness, your certainty. Not your performance of these things, the actual things. When you show up completely, rooms feel it. People sense the difference between someone who's fully there and someone who's halfway hiding. Third, eliminate apologetic presence. Notice how often you apologize for existing. Sorry, can I just say something? This might be stupid, but I don't mean to interrupt, but every one of these phrases broadcasts, I don't deserve to be here. And if you don't believe you deserve to be there, why should anyone else? Stop apologizing. Start claiming. Not aggressively. Naturally. You're here. You have something to say. You have the right to say it. No apology needed. Fourth, develop vertical presence. Most people have horizontal presence. They expand outward, trying to connect with everyone, seeking to be liked. Leaders have vertical presence. They ground down and rise up. They connect to something deeper than approval, to truth, to purpose, to values. That vertical alignment creates gravity. When you're rooted in something real, you stop swaying with every opinion. You stop adjusting with every reaction. You become unmovable, not rigid. Unmovable. There's a difference. Rigid resists. Unmovable simply is. And isness, complete, grounded, authentic isness, is what invisible authority looks like. Now here's the paradox. The less you try to control the room, the more influence you have. Because control is force. And force creates resistance. But presence creates space. Space where people can think, where they can feel. where they can choose to align with your vision, not because they're compelled, but because they're inspired. That's leadership, not authority. Leadership. They listen not because you speak. They listen because you mean it. Every word carries the weight of your conviction. Every pause carries the depth of your certainty. Every moment carries the fullness of your presence. And none of it is performed. All of it is real. This is what shifts the room without force. This is what creates followership without demand. This is what makes people remember you long after you've left. Not because you were the loudest, because you were the most real. Here's your practice. Next time you enter a room, any room, pause at the threshold. Take one deep breath. Connect to your center. Remember who you are. Then enter, not performing confidence, embodying it. Watch what happens. The room will feel different. You'll feel different. Because you're no longer seeking anything from that room. You're bringing something to it. Your complete presence. Your grounded certainty. Your invisible authority. And authority that doesn't need announcement is the strongest kind. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It doesn't perform. It simply is. And isness is irresistible. People gravitate toward those who know themselves, who are comfortable in their own skin, who don't need external validation to feel valuable. Be that person, not someday. Now. Command the room by not needing to command it. Earn attention by not seeking it. Create influence by being so grounded in yourself that others naturally want to know what you see from that center. This is invisible authority. This is gravitational leadership. This is how you become the person everyone remembers. Not through force, through presence, not through demand, through gravity. Leadership is not volume, it's gravity. And you're building that gravity right now, with every word you mean, every pause you hold, every moment you show up completely. They listen not because you speak, but because you mean it. And meaning, authentic, grounded, certain meaning, is the most powerful force in any room. Chapter 7. How to be remembered, not just heard. Your message is not what they hear. It's what they feel after you leave. This is the distinction most people never grasp. They focus on words, on delivery, on technique, all surface, all temporary. Real impact happens deeper, in the emotional landscape that remains after sound fades, in the shift that occurs when truth meets readiness, in the memory that forms not from information, but from transformation. You want to be remembered? Stop trying to be impressive. Start trying to be real. Because people forget impressive. They remember real. Think about the conversations that changed your life, the speeches that shifted your perspective, the moments when someone's words reached inside and rearranged something fundamental. Were those words perfect? Number. Were they performed? Number. Were they real? Absolutely. And that realness, that authentic, vulnerable human realness, is what carved them into your memory forever. This is what you're learning to create. Not performances. Moments, not speeches. Experiences, not information. Transformation. And transformation requires something most speakers avoid: emotional truth. You have to be willing to feel what you're saying, to let it move you, to show that it matters, not perform that it matters. Actually, let it matter. This terrifies most people, because feeling is vulnerable, caring is exposing. Meaning something deeply means others can see that you mean it deeply. And what if they reject it? What if they mock it? What if your caring is weaponized against you? These fears keep most people locked in performance mode, locked in safety, locked in forgettable communication. But you're different. You understand that the risk of vulnerability is also the path to memorability. That people remember those who dared to care, those who dared to let emotion show, those who dared to speak truth instead of playing it safe. So here's how you become unforgettable. Tell stories, not facts. Stories. Because stories bypass analytical defenses and land directly in the emotional brain. They create experiences in the listener's mind. They make abstract concepts concrete. And concrete experiences are what memory holds on to. But not just any stories. Stories with structure. Stories with emotional rhythm. Stories that take people on a journey. Tension. Release. Moral. This is the ancient pattern, the pattern that's been captivating humans since we gathered around fires. Setup, conflict, resolution, meaning. When you master this pattern, you become a narrator of transformation. Every story you tell becomes a vehicle for change. Here's the structure. Start with tension, with a problem, with something unresolved. This hooks attention, creates investment, makes people need to know what happens next. Then show the struggle, the resistance, the obstacle. This creates emotional connection. Everyone knows struggle. Everyone relates to obstacles. Then reveal the shift, the moment of clarity, the breakthrough. This creates hope, shows possibility, demonstrates that change is real. Finally, land the moral, the lesson, the truth that story revealed. This creates integration, lets people apply the story to their own lives. When you do this well, people don't just hear your story. They feel it. They see themselves in it. They carry it with them. And that's when you become unforgettable. But here's the key. Your stories must be honest, not polished. Honest. People can sense manufactured inspiration from miles away. They can feel when a story has been workshopped and focus grouped and scrubbed of authenticity. And they tune out. But when a story is real, when you share something you actually experienced, when you let them see your humanity, your struggle, your breakthrough, they lean in. Because authentic stories give permission. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to struggle. Permission to be human. And everyone is desperate for that permission. So give it. Through your willingness to be real. Through your willingness to share not just your triumphs, but your failures. Through your willingness to let them see that you're still figuring it out too. This doesn't diminish your authority. It amplifies it, because real authority comes from shared humanity, not distant perfection. Now let me give you a visualization exercise. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself giving a speech, a talk, a message that matters deeply to you. See the room. Feel the energy. Notice who's there. Now imagine that as you speak, something shifts. People stop fidgeting. They lean forward. Their faces change. Not because you're entertaining them, because you're reaching them. Your words are landing in the place where real change happens, where beliefs live, where identity forms. Feel what that feels like. To know your message is transforming someone in real time. To see understanding dawn in their eyes. To watch resistance soften into openness. That's what you're building toward. That moment of connection where your truth becomes their truth. Where your breakthrough becomes their possibility. Where your story becomes their permission. And that moment doesn't happen through technique. It happens through emotional honesty, through your willingness to care deeply about your message and your listener, through your decision to stop protecting yourself and start serving others. Your message is not what they hear. It's what they feel after you leave. So what do you want them to feel? Inspired? Then you must be inspired as you speak. Empowered? Then you must speak from your own power. Clear? Then you must embody clarity. Whatever you want to create in others must first live in you. And then you must be brave enough to let it show. This is how you become memorable. Not through perfection, through presence, not through performance, through authenticity, not through trying to be remembered, through being so real that forgetting you becomes impossible. People will forget your words, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. They'll never forget that you cared enough to be vulnerable, that you trusted them enough to be real, that you valued transformation over impression. So tell your stories. Share your truth. Let emotion show. Care deeply. Mean it completely. And trust that authenticity is always remembered. Always. Because in a world of performance and pretense and carefully curated images, real stands out. Real matters. Real lasts. Be real. And you'll be unforgettable. Chapter 8. The Leader's State of Mind. Your voice emerges from your state, not your throat. Your state. The internal condition you're in when you open your mouth. This is what most speaking training ignores. They focus on mechanics, on technique, on what to do with your mouth and hands and posture. All useful, all secondary. Because if your internal state is chaotic, no amount of technique will make you sound centered. If your mind is scattered, your words will scatter. If your energy is anxious, your message will carry that anxiety, no matter how perfectly you articulate. This is why we must talk about state management, about the internal work that precedes the external expression, about becoming the kind of person whose natural state is leadership. Let's start with the foundation. Breath. Every powerful speaker understands this. Breath is not just biological. It's psychological. It's emotional. It's energetic. When your breath is shallow, your nervous system is activated. Your body thinks there's danger. Your voice comes out higher, faster, tighter. But when your breath is deep, when it moves from your belly, not your chest, when it's slow and steady and full, everything calms. Your nervous system settles. Your voice deepens. Your presence expands. This is not metaphor. This is physiology. You cannot speak with power while breathing like prey. So before you speak, especially before important communication, breathe. Not quick breaths, deep ones. In through your nose, into your belly. Hold for a moment. Out through your mouth. Completely. Do this 3 times. Watch what happens to your state. Anxiety decreases. Clarity increases. Center finds you. From this centered state, leadership speech becomes natural. Now let's talk about posture. Your body shape affects your mind shape. When you collapse your chest, you collapse your confidence. When you hunch your shoulders, you carry the weight of uncertainty. When you look down, your energy goes down. But when you lengthen your spine, when you open your chest, when you lift your gaze, something shifts internally. You feel different. And feeling different makes you speak different. This is not fake it till you make it. This is embody it and become it. Your posture sends signals to your brain about what kind of moment this is. Collapsed posture says danger, submission, smallness. Upright posture says safety, confidence, presence. Choose your signal. Stand like someone who matters, because you do. Now the deeper work, intention. Before you speak, know why you're speaking, not what you're going to say. Why you're saying it. What shift do you want to create? What feeling do you want to generate? What understanding do you want to build? When your intention is clear, your words organize themselves around it. You don't have to memorize. You don't have to script. You simply speak from purpose. And purposeful speech is powerful speech. But when your intention is vague, when you're speaking just to fill space, or because it's your turn, or because you feel you should, your words wander. They lack direction. They lack impact. So get clear. Before every important communication, ask yourself, what's my intention? Let the answer guide everything else. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Authenticity. You've heard this word 1,000 times. Be authentic. Just be yourself. Speak from the heart. All true, all vague. Let me make it concrete. Authenticity is not revealing everything. It's not oversharing. It's not making every conversation therapy. Authenticity is alignment between what you think, what you feel, and what you say. When those 3 match, you're authentic. When they don't, you're performing. And performance, no matter how skilled, always feels hollow. So the work is this. Get honest with yourself first. Before you speak to others, speak to yourself. What do I actually think about this? What do I actually feel? What's true for me right now? Then speak from that truth. Not the truth you think others want to hear. Your truth. This takes courage, because your truth might not be popular. It might not be what people expect. It might challenge the room. But it will be real. And real always trumps liked. Always. People might not agree with authentic speech, but they'll respect it. They'll remember it. They'll be moved by it. Because it's rare. In a world of curated messages and focus-grouped responses and carefully managed images, real is revolutionary. So be real. Even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Now, let's talk about presence. Real presence. Not the performed kind. Presence means being fully where you are. Not thinking about what you're going to say next. not worried about how you're being perceived, not planning your exit. Here, now, completely. When you're present, people feel it. Your attention on them is palpable. Your focus is magnetic. Your energy is grounding. And from that grounded presence, your words carry weight. Because they're not coming from anxiety or planning or performance. They're coming from the moment itself, from authentic response to what's actually happening. This is improvisation at its highest form. Not improvisation like comedy. Improvisation like jazz. Responding to what is. Creating from the moment. Trusting that presence will provide what's needed. And it will. Every time. When you're fully present, the right words come. The right tone emerges. The right energy flows. Not because you controlled it, because you allowed it. Here's the practice. Before your next important conversation or presentation, take 60 seconds. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Feel your feet on the ground. Let your spine lengthen. Ask yourself, what's my intention? Feel the answer. Then open your eyes and begin. From that state, from that center, from that presence. Watch what happens. Your voice will sound different, deeper, clearer, more grounded. Not because you changed technique, because you changed state. And state determines everything. Control your energy, and the room will follow. Not through domination, through demonstration. When you're calm, others calm. When you're centered, others center. When you're present, others become present. This is leadership. Leading through being, not through doing. Your state is your message. Your presence is your power. Your internal clarity creates external impact. So tend to your state. Breathe deeply. Stand tall. Know your intention. Be authentic. Stay present. From this foundation, everything else becomes easy. Not because you're trying hard, because you're aligned deeply. And deep alignment is what leadership looks like from the inside. Control your energy, and the room will follow. Every single time. Chapter 9. The voice that leads change. Leadership through words in crisis or conflict. This is where everything you've learned gets tested. When stakes are high. When emotions are elevated. When people are divided, or afraid, or resistant. This is when your voice matters most. And this is when most people fail. Because crisis amplifies everything. If you're uncertain, crisis makes you paralyzed. If you're reactive, crisis makes you volatile. If you're performative, crisis exposes you. But if you're centered, if you've done the internal work, if you speak from grounded truth, crisis becomes your moment. The moment when real leadership emerges. Let me tell you what leadership sounds like in difficult moments. It sounds calm, not artificially calm, genuinely calm. Because it comes from someone who's not swept up in the emotional storm. Someone who's anchored in something deeper than the immediate chaos. This doesn't mean emotionless. It means grounded. You can acknowledge the difficulty while remaining steady. You can feel concern while projecting certainty. You can care deeply while staying clear. This is the paradox of crisis leadership. You must hold both empathy and strength simultaneously. If you're only empathetic, people feel understood, but not led. If you're only strong, people feel directed, but not seen. But when you combine them, when your strength is empathetic and your empathy is strong, you create the conditions for people to move through crisis, not around it, through it. Here's how this sounds in practice. I know this is difficult. I feel it too. And here's what we're going to do. 3 parts. Acknowledgement of reality. Shared humanity. Clear direction. This structure honors the emotional experience while providing the certainty people desperately need in uncertain times. Most leaders skip one of these parts. They either ignore the emotion and jump to direction, which feels mulled, or they dwell in the emotion and never provide direction, which feels lost. But you're learning to hold both, to be human and decisive, vulnerable and certain, with people and ahead of them. This is advanced leadership, and it starts with your voice. In crisis, your voice must do 2 things simultaneously. It must acknowledge the weight of the moment, and it must project the possibility beyond it. Your tone must say, "This is serious, and we can handle it," not one or the other, both. This requires you to have already done the internal work, to already be anchored in something that doesn't shake when circumstances do. Values, purpose, truth. When you're rooted there, crisis doesn't uproot you. It reveals you. Now let's talk about conflict. When people disagree, when tensions rise, when communication breaks down, this is where most voices get louder. Yours must get clearer. Not quieter necessarily, clearer. In conflict, people aren't listening for volume. They're listening for truth, for fairness, for someone who can see all sides without losing their center. That someone must be you. Here's what this looks like. You listen first. Really listen. Not to respond, to understand. You let each side feel heard before you speak. This alone diffuses 70% of conflicts. Because most conflict is about feeling unseen, unheard, invalidated. When you validate without agreeing, you create space for resolution. Then you speak, not taking sides, holding center. I hear you. And I hear you. Here's what I see. Your voice in this moment must be neutral, but not cold, strong, but not aggressive, clear, but not dismissive. This is a tightrope. But you can walk it, because you're not invested in being right. You're invested in finding truth, and truth has a voice that conflict respects. Let me share a story. There was a leader facing a divided team. Half wanted one direction, half wanted another. Emotions were high. Accusations were flying. Most leaders would have made a decision and forced it through. This leader did something different. She gathered everyone, sat in silence for 30 seconds, then spoke. I've heard you all. I respect your passion. You care deeply about this work, and that matters. Now here's what I need to tell you. We're stronger together than divided, and we can find a path that honors what matters to all of us, but only if we choose trust over territory. Then silence again. Not awkward silence, sacred silence, the kind that lets truth land. And in that silence, the room shifted, not because she had all the answers, because she held the space, with strength and empathy simultaneously. That's what your voice must do in conflict. Hold space, not dominate it. Hold it with clarity, with compassion, with unwavering centeredness. Now here's the deeper principle. People don't follow your position. They follow your presence. In crisis, your position might be challenged. Your strategy might be questioned. Your decisions might be debated. But your presence, your centered, calm, certain presence, that's what people anchor to. So in difficult moments, don't try to have all the answers. Be the answer. Be the still point. Be the voice that reminds everyone what matters. Not through speeches, through being. Your state becomes their state. Your calm becomes their calm. Your certainty becomes their certainty. This is how voice leads change. Not through force, through presence, not through control, through influence, not through domination, through inspiration. And it all starts with your decision to remain centered when everything else is shaking. To speak truth when everyone else is speaking fear. To hold both empathy and strength, even when it would be easier to choose just one. This is hard. This is why most people don't lead. They manage. They direct. They control. But they don't lead. Real leadership happens in the space between chaos and order. In the moment when someone's voice cuts through the noise and reminds everyone, we can do this. Be that voice. Not through volume, through certainty, not through aggression, through clarity, not through performance, through presence. The world doesn't need more loud voices. It needs more clear ones. It needs more people who can stay centered in storms, who can speak truth in confusion, who can lead through presence, not force. That person is you. Right now. In this moment. The voice that leads change doesn't shout. It grounds. It doesn't demand. It invites. It doesn't force. It inspires. And inspiration, true inspiration, comes from someone who's already found solid ground and is showing others where it is. Be that person. Speak from that ground. Lead through that presence, and watch how people follow. Not because you demanded it, because they sense you know the way, and they want to walk it too. They don't follow your position. They follow your presence. Always. Chapter 10. The legacy of your voice. Most people speak to be heard. You now speak to be remembered. This is where we began. And this is where we return. Because the journey of voice is circular. You started seeking power. You discovered it was already yours. You wanted technique. You found that truth is the only technique that matters. You hoped to sound like a leader. You became one instead. This is the transformation. Not external. Internal. Not learned. Remembered. Because leadership voice was never something you needed to acquire. It was something you needed to uncover. Beneath the performance. Beneath the fear. Beneath the constant seeking of validation. There it was. Your authentic voice. The one that doesn't ask permission. The one that speaks from center. The one that carries truth without shouting. That voice is your legacy. Not what you leave behind when you're gone. What you create every time you speak. Every conversation is legacy. Every word is ripple. Every moment you speak from truth, you change something in the world. Maybe just one person. Maybe 100. Maybe 1,000. But change happens because truth spoken clearly always creates movement, always creates possibility, always creates transformation. This is what I want you to understand. You're not just learning to speak better. You're learning to change reality through voice, to shift perspectives, to inspire action, to create clarity where there was confusion. This is sacred work, and it requires sacred responsibility, because words have power, real power, the power to heal or harm, to build or break, to elevate or destroy. And now that you understand how to wield that power, now that your voice carries weight, now that people listen when you speak, you must use it wisely. Not for ego, for service. Not for control, for liberation. Not to dominate, to elevate. This is the leader's oath. I will speak truth, even when it's uncomfortable. I will honor silence as much as sound. I will mean what I say, and say what I mean. I will use my voice to serve, not to perform. I will remain centered when others are shaken. I will lead through presence, not force. I will remember that my words create worlds, and I will choose those words with care. This oath is your compass. When you're uncertain what to say, return to it. When you're tempted to perform, return to it. When you forget your power, return to it. Because the work of voice is never done. It's daily practice, daily choice, daily remembering of who you are and what you stand for. Some days, you'll speak with perfect clarity. Other days, you'll stumble. Both are part of the path. What matters is this: you keep speaking. You keep showing up. You keep choosing truth over performance. You keep becoming more of who you really are. Because that's what the world needs. Not more people who sound impressive, more people who are real. Not more performers, more truth tellers. Not more voices seeking validation, more voices offering direction. You are becoming that voice. With every choice to speak from center. With every decision to honor silence. With every moment you mean what you say. Your legacy is being built. Not someday. Now. In this conversation. In the next one. In every moment, you choose presence over performance. And here's what happens when you live this way. Years from now, someone will remember something you said. Not because it was clever, because it was true. Not because you performed it perfectly, because you meant it completely. And that truth will have rippled through their life, creating changes you'll never see, but that matter more than you know. That's legacy, not monuments. Moments, not fame. Impact, not being remembered by millions. Being unforgettable to the ones who needed your voice, and you never know who that is. So speak truth always. Let your voice carry your values. Let your presence reflect your center. Let your words create possibility. Because this is what leaders do. They don't raise their voice. They raise their vision. They don't shout louder. They see further. They don't dominate conversations. They elevate them. And in elevating others through their words, they create the kind of legacy that lives beyond memory. The kind that becomes woven into other people's becoming. The kind that transforms the world, one conversation at a time. Final reflection. Most people speak to be heard. You now speak to be remembered. This is where we began, and this is where we return. Because the journey of voice is circular. You started seeking power. You discovered it was already yours. You wanted technique. You found that truth is the only technique that matters. You hoped to sound like a leader. You became one instead. This is the transformation. Not external, internal. Not learned, remembered. Because leadership voice was never something you needed to acquire. It was something you needed to uncover. Beneath the performance, beneath the fear, beneath the constant seeking of validation. There it was, your authentic voice, the one that doesn't ask permission, the one that speaks from center, the one that carries truth without shouting. That voice is your legacy, not what you leave behind when you're gone, what you create every time you speak. Every conversation is legacy. Every word is ripple. Every moment you speak from truth, you change something in the world. Maybe just one person, maybe 100, maybe 1,000. But change happens. Because truth spoken clearly always creates movement, always creates possibility, always creates transformation. This is what I want you to understand. You're not just learning to speak better. You're learning to change reality through voice, to shift perspectives, to inspire action, to create clarity where there was confusion. This is sacred work, and it requires sacred responsibility, because words have power, real power. The power to heal or harm, to build or break, to elevate or destroy. And now that you understand how to wield that power, now that your voice carries weight, now that people listen when you speak, you must use it wisely. Not for ego, for service, not for control, for liberation, not to dominate, to elevate. This is the leader's oath. I will speak truth, even when it's uncomfortable. I will honor silence as much as sound. I will mean what I say and say what I mean. I will use my voice to serve, not to perform. I will remain centered when others are shaken. I will lead through presence, not force. I will remember that my words create worlds, and I will choose those words with care. This oath is your compass. When you're uncertain what to say, return to it. When you're tempted to perform, return to it. When you forget your power, return to it. Because the work of voice is never done. It's daily practice, daily choice, daily remembering of who you are and what you stand for. Some days, you'll speak with perfect clarity. Other days, you'll stumble. Both are part of the path. What matters is this. You keep speaking. You keep showing up. You keep choosing truth over performance. You keep becoming more of who you really are, because that's what the world needs. Not more people who sound impressive, more people who are real. Not more performers, more truth tellers. Not more voices seeking validation, more voices offering direction. You are becoming that voice. With every choice to speak from center, with every decision to honor silence, with every moment you mean what you say, your legacy is being built. Not someday. Now. In this conversation. In the next one. In every moment, you choose presence over performance. And here's what happens when you live this way. Years from now, someone will remember something you said. Not because it was clever, because it was true. Not because you performed it perfectly, because you meant it completely. And that truth will have rippled through their life, creating changes you'll never see, but that matter more than you know. That's legacy. Not monuments. Moments. Not fame. Impact. Not being remembered by millions. Being unforgettable to the ones who needed your voice. And you never know who that is. So speak truth always. Let your voice carry your values. Let your presence reflect your center. Let your words create possibility. Because this is what leaders do. They don't raise their voice. They raise their vision. They don't shout louder. They see further. They don't dominate conversations. They elevate them. And in elevating others through their words, they create the kind of legacy that lives beyond memory, the kind that becomes woven into other people's becoming, the kind that transforms the world, one conversation at a time. This is your work now, not to be perfect, to be present, not to have all the answers, to ask better questions, not to control outcomes, to influence possibilities. Your voice is a gift, not just to you, to everyone who hears it. So honor that gift, develop it, refine it, deepen it, not through tricks or techniques alone, but through the daily practice of alignment, of speaking truth, of meaning what you say, of becoming the kind of person whose words must be heard because they come from a place that's undeniably real. Think about the person you were when you began this journey. The one who wasn't sure their voice mattered. The one who performed confidence but didn't feel it. The one who spoke to fill space rather than create impact. That person is transforming right now, in this very moment. You're not who you were 2 hours ago. You've remembered something essential, something that was always true, but perhaps forgotten. Your voice matters. Your message matters. Your presence matters. Not because of what you do, because of who you are. And who you are is a leader. Not because someone gave you that title, because you chose it. You chose to speak with intention, to honor silence, to mean what you say, to stay centered in chaos, to lead through presence. These choices make you a leader, and these choices are available to you every single day, every conversation, every meeting, every moment someone needs clarity, and you provide it. Every moment someone needs certainty, and you embody it. Every moment someone needs truth, and you speak it. That's leadership. That's your legacy. That's your voice, doing what it was always meant to do. So as you move forward from here, remember, you don't need to be louder. You need to be clearer. You don't need to talk more. You need to mean more. You don't need to perform confidence. You need to embody truth. And when you do this, when you speak from that place of aligned, authentic, grounded presence, people listen, not because you commanded it, because they feel it. They feel the difference between words spoken from ego and words spoken from truth. They feel the difference between performance and presence. They feel the difference between someone trying to be heard and someone who knows they must be. Be the latter, always, in every conversation, in every moment, in every word. Your voice is not sound. It's energy. It's truth. It's the audible manifestation of your values, your clarity, your purpose. So let it be worthy of that. Let it be clean, clear, honest. Let it be strong enough to hold others and soft enough to honor them. Let it be certain enough to lead and humble enough to listen. Let it be yours, authentically, completely, undeniably yours. Because the world has enough imitations. It needs originals. It needs people who sound like themselves, who speak their truth, who lead through being rather than performing. You are becoming that person. With every practice, every choice, every moment you honor your voice by using it with intention. And as you continue this journey, because it is a journey, not a destination, remember where you've been. Remember the mirror principle. Your outer voice reflects your inner clarity. Remember that silence is the strongest sound. Remember that tone conquers vocabulary. Remember that conviction creates impact. Remember that precision beats volume. Remember that presence commands without demanding. Remember that authenticity is unforgettable. Remember that your state determines your voice. Remember that empathy and strength can coexist. Remember that legacy is built in moments, not monuments. These principles are your foundation now. Return to them when you're uncertain. Trust them when you're tested. Live them when you're tempted to perform. Because they're not just speaking principles. They're life principles. They're the patterns of people who lead not through force, but through truth. And you're one of those people now. Not because you completed a course, because you chose transformation. You chose to stop seeking validation and start offering value. You chose to stop performing leadership and start being it. You chose to honor your voice as the powerful tool it is. That choice changes everything. It changes how people respond to you. It changes what you're capable of creating. It changes the impact you have on the world. But most importantly, it changes how you see yourself. You're no longer someone who hopes to be heard. You're someone who knows they will be. Not through arrogance, through certainty. The certainty that comes from alignment, from speaking truth, from meaning every word. And that certainty is magnetic. It draws people in. It creates followership. It builds influence. Not the forced kind, the natural kind. The kind that comes from being so grounded in your truth that others want to know what you see from that solid ground. This is your life now, speaking from center, leading through presence, creating legacy through voice. And it begins again tomorrow, with your first conversation, your first meeting, your first moment when someone needs leadership and you provide it, not through volume, through clarity, not through force, through presence, not through performance, through truth. Most people speak to be heard. You now speak to be remembered. Not because you're trying to be memorable, but because you're being real. And real is always remembered, always valued, always needed. So go forth with your voice. Use it wisely. Use it boldly. Use it in service of truth, in service of others, in service of the highest version of yourself. Because when you do that, When you speak from that place, when you lead through that presence, you don't just change conversations. You change lives. You don't just communicate messages. You create movements. You don't just speak words. You shape reality. And that is the true power of leadership voice. Not control. Creation. Not domination. Transformation. Not performance. Truth. Your truth. Spoken clearly. Meant completely. Felt deeply. By everyone who has the privilege of hearing you speak. This is your legacy. Not what you leave when you're gone. What you create every time you open your mouth. Every word a seed. Every sentence a shift. Every speech a transformation. This is what you've become. Not someone who talks. Someone who leads. Not someone who performs. Someone who transforms. Not someone who seeks to be heard. Someone who knows they already are. Because your voice carries truth. And truth, spoken with clarity and conviction and presence. Truth is irresistible. Truth is undeniable. Truth is leadership itself. So lead. With your voice. With your presence. With your truth. Lead not by demanding followers, but by being so centered that people naturally want to walk with you. Lead not by shouting directions, but by speaking so clearly that the path becomes obvious. Lead not by controlling outcomes, but by creating conditions where transformation becomes inevitable. This is who you are now. This is what your voice does. This is your legacy, being built. Right now, with every word, every pause, every moment of centered, authentic, powerful presence. A true leader doesn't raise his voice. He raises his vision. And in raising that vision through words that matter, through silence that deepens, through presence that grounds, he changes everything. You are that leader. You have that voice. You create that change. Not someday, today, tomorrow. Every day you choose to speak from truth. This is your beginning, not your end. The beginning of a life led through voice, through presence, through the power of words that come from the deepest part of who you are. Speak them well. Speak them often. Speak them with the full weight of your being. And watch as the world leans in. Not because you demanded attention, but because you embodied truth. And truth, my friend, is what everyone is listening for, whether they know it or not. Be the voice that speaks it, always. The journey is complete. The transformation is real. The voice is yours. Now go, speak, lead, transform. The world is waiting for the voice only you can give. Most people speak to be heard. You now speak to be remembered. A true leader doesn't raise his voice. He raises his vision. Your journey continues with your next word. Make it count.